sleeping for 8 to 10 hours does help you in retaining stuff very well.
Welcome to Decoding Academic Success, the podcast that goes beyond books to give you secrets of academic excellence. I'm your host Aarav Bijoor, and I'm here to give you tips, tricks and secrets in how to achieve in your academics. So, get a notebook, a pen and a highlighter if needed, because we are here to decode the secrets and mysteries of achievements. Let's get started. Welcome to Decoding Academic Success. Here we have Dhruvi Sharma with us.
Thank you for having me.
She's an excellent student in biology and she also organized the first Rustomji MUN.
Thank you.
It was so amazing. I'm looking forward to go next year.
Yeah, there's definitely one next year.
Alright. So it's been 15 minutes and I don't know how to react. She told me she got a 96 in biology. It's like a dream for most of us.
Thank you so much.
So, looking at the mark, I'd like to ask you, how do you memorize all these, difficult, complex, lengthy topics of biology?
Okay, so this is something a lot of people have asked me before or talked about before. The thing with me is, for me, teaching is a very effective method of learning new things.
Yeah.
So for example, if I have to learn transport in animals, if I'm alone in my room, I'll just act like I'm teaching it to an imaginary group of people. I'll explain the topics. I'll over-explain topics to an extent where I understand everything I'm saying. So
Yeah.
the more you try to explain it to others, the more you tend to, understand it yourself as well. Because there are certain things which writing down just won't help. You can definitely just rote learn it and remember it. Because for a lot of people who don't want to pursue biology further, for them it's a very difficult subject to understand.
Yeah.
So when you don't want to understand and just want to finish it for the exams, in that situation, writing and learning is the best method. But for somebody who actually wants to pursue biology later and wants to understand it, for them I'd prefer for them to act like they're either teaching or prepare presentations, teach it to their friends, have group study sessions. All of these were definitely very effective for me back in IGCSE.
Right. So right now, when I'm studying biology, most of my teachers tell me, break down karke padho. So, what does it actually mean and how do I study while breaking down these complex topics?
Okay, so for me, breakdown karke padho always meant breaking the chapter up into at least 3 days.
Yeah.
Don't try to finish a chapter in one day itself. Usually, when you try to finish it in a day, there's a very big chance that tomorrow or day after, you'll end up forgetting everything you learned.
Yeah.
Don't try to register anything in short-term memory.
Right.
Everything has to, because there's a very big chance you are studying at least a month before boards. So
Correct.
you need to retain that knowledge for a month at least. Now, if you have a chapter of like, let's say, which has 3 main subtopics in it, one subtopic per day is the way to go. That way, there is a nice possibility that at least for a week you will retain all parts of that chapters. And the more you keep revising, the higher the chances that in the next week and the further coming weeks you won't let the topic slip up from your memory.
Right.
So breakdown karke padho always for me has meant breaking it into 3 separate days and completing a chapter over a longer course of time.
Right. So Dhruvi, personally, I want to know, and like it's a very serious question, that what are your study habits and what resources you use?
Alright, so study habits, okay, for me, studying at night is way more efficient than studying in the morning. I am not one of those people who can wake up at 6 a.m. or 4 a.m. and then study till 12. For me, that has never worked. I'll always shut through 3 alarms and never actually get to studying. So for you, first, try to identify which part of the day is most productive for you.
Right.
I also sleep a lot in the afternoons. I take big auntie naps for like 2 to 3 hours in the afternoons. So I know afternoons are not productive at all. Mornings from let's say 9 to 12 and at night 9 to 12, those are my most productive hours of the day. Once you have identified those, try to work around those hours so you can take up maximum efficiency. How long you study doesn't matter as long as what you're studying is actually important and you're efficient with your time. Sitting for 2 hours to study and finishing the entire portion is much better than sitting for 12 hours and only doing one chapter.
Right.
So main study habits will always include identifying your most productive times of the day, working around that and getting good sleep. I know this is very annoying to hear from all the time, from all the people all the time, that sleep for 8 hours, sleep for 10 hours. But in actuality as well, sleeping for 8 to 10 hours does help you in retaining stuff very well.
Right.
And luckily our board exams are in the PM schedule, which means you get to wake up late. Now take advantage of that and sleep at a comfortable time at night. So you actually end up sleeping for at least a good 8 to 10 hours before the exam. As for resources, r/IGCSE is the subreddit on Reddit itself, which has Discord servers, and it has free Save My Exam topicals. I would never endorse actually buying like subscriptions for any site because you're going out of your way to pay extra money for something that was always available like for free on the internet.
Right.
So try to find resources for free. Exam Mate is also a good idea. Past Paper Cambridge is also an app which I use. So try to find free resources that you can use instead of going out of your way to pay for something.
Right, Dhruvi. So personally, I got my papers like 2 weeks ago, and I saw that the diagram I had to draw, I got this big 0. So what are your strategies and what are your tips that you should do to get your highest mark in the diagram possible?
Alright, so diagrams, anything that is related to drawing always comes with practice. At
Right.
home when you're sitting, like for example, try to go through a paper, search for all the diagram related questions and keep drawing. Now when I talk about drawing, don't directly start with like a very dark outline. Draw it lightly, see if you like the shape of it, go over it with a darker pencil and then erase the light lines. Because your eraser will not be efficient in erasing a line which is very dark in which the pencil has been pressed too hard. It will leave dirty shabby lines and then you lose your mark for outline. The lighter you draw to get a plan of your diagram, the easier it is to erase and correct your errors.
Yeah.
Which is why practicing and drawing lightly and then going over it with a darker pencil is the correct way to go forward with the diagram.
And what do I do to remember labeling diagrams?
Okay, so I don't think there is any specific trick for that except for look at more diagrams, look at different angles of the diagrams, because a lot of times you will see a cross section and you won't realize what it is, but it turns out it's the same thing you studied in your book. The only difference is it's from the top or it's sideways or it's inverted. So the textbook has amazing diagrams. Go through those diagrams and label on them itself, whether it be colored or black and white. That wouldn't make a difference because in your paper you'll always be getting plain outlines. So go through more images, search online and you'll find a lot of examples which you need to memorize. I don't think there's like a shortcut to go about this.
Right. So Dhruvi, there's this very main question for the podcast, which is when I'm solving my paper. So for us, we have ATP, MCQ and structured all together. So how do I split the paper and what questions do I attempt first so that I don't lose any questions in the lack of time?
Alright, so first you have 3 papers. Now one thing to know is during the board exam schedule, all your papers will be on separate days with a considerable amount of time between them. So you wouldn't have to worry about having papers back to back. You will always have a larger gap between papers. Secondly, when you talk about which questions are important to attempt, when you get your paper, run through the entire paper first. Mostly क्या होता है, you'll see one and you'll realize कि ये question तो नहीं आता है मुझे, there's no way I'll know the answer to this. Don't waste your time trying to think about it. Attempt all the questions, you know for sure you will get your 3 to 4 marks in. For example, if there are 2 mark questions, 2 mark questions are usually easy because you only require 1 or 2 keywords. Write those and underline your keywords. Now, the thing with underlining keywords is when you recheck your paper, instead of having to read your entire answer, just check if you have written the keyword. So when you underline it previously, you're just making it easier for your future self to know whether you've done it or not. And one more thing. Now a lot of us tend to overwrite our answers. If you're only getting 3 marks for an answer, it usually means you only need to write 3 sentences or include 3 to 4 keywords. Don't end up writing extra just because you think more content is going to give you better quality of marks. It will not. Quality over quantity is always going to apply throughout your entire paper. Don't overwrite just because it looks better or looks like you've studied more. Only write the keywords that are required, and to recognize keywords, read the MS of the papers. So for example, if you just got your prelim papers back, formative assessment papers back, go through those papers and don't rely on just the textbook to know what your answers are. Find the past paper, go through the MS, because the MS will always have an underlined keyword there. That is what you need to focus on. Those are the words you need to fix in your mind that okay, her paper mein I have to use this word, otherwise I will not get that designated mark. It is very important to know how to correctly read the MS in any biology paper.
Right, Dhruvi. So again, while I'm studying, I am very scared to approach biology. Because the biology books, they start from this thick and opening them is a nightmare for me. So how do I, set on the positive side to study biology?
Okay, studying from the textbook has been very difficult for me throughout the course of these 3 years. The ideal thing to do, as I said, first break down the chapters.
Yeah.
Now, when you do that, make your own notes. Making your own notes is actually a very efficient way of studying. And even though the school endorses it a lot, it sometimes gets annoying to keep writing for yourself. But that is usually because we are not taught how to make good notes. A good note, like a good piece of note, will not include a paragraph on how a process is carried out. It will only include the 3 main equations if it's a chemical reaction, or the 3 main reactants or products that are required for photosynthesis, for that matter. You don't need a whole paragraph explaining how it occurs. You just need to know the 3 things that are required, the 3 products or the 2 products that you get, and where it occurs. That's all your notes should include. Your notes should never be something that, you know, when you look at, you start feeling sleepy or scared. That's the whole point of them. It's to make you feel better about the content you're learning. So when you do write notes, stick to bullet format. Don't write paragraphs. No good notes will ever have huge paragraphs in it, because paragraph padhna hota to main textbook hi padh leti hu.
Yeah.
Why am I writing notes? So that it's easier for me to read. Put it in bullet points. Mind maps don't really work for me because I get very confused looking at them. But if they do work for you, stick to drawing mind maps as well. Mind maps are a very good way of dumbing down knowledge for yourself, so that tomorrow when you go read it again, you're not scared कि अरे ये कहाँ से आया, वो कहाँ से आया. Identify what ways are easier for you to understand and absorb knowledge better.
All right, Dhruvi. It was amazing talking to you. All the knowledge you've given us, I hope all of us use it to score a 96 just like you.
Thank you so much. I love being here.
Thank you, Dhruvi.